everyone. I'm meteorologist Valerie Mills. We are keeping a close eye on this wave out in the Atlantic, and the odds are continuing to increase that this is likely to become our next named storm. If it is able to, it will take the name Ernesto, and at this point, conditions very favorable in the next couple of days. Look at the odds. We're up to 70% this forms in the next 2 days, so it could be early this week where we have our next named storm. Over the next week, we are pretty certain this is going to be able to form, as conditions are really quite favorable as it continues on that general northwest track. We're talking areas around the U.S. Virgin Islands, Puerto Rico, and the Leeward Islands to potentially be seeing impacts early this week. But as for the long-term track, it looks like a trough is going to build in the east coast, and that could steer this storm away from the lower 48. But really a lot of things working in its favor. Look at this warm water that is going to encounter in the next few days. Mid upper 80s, a lot of fuel for strengthening as it starts to move into the Caribbean early this week. We also have our subtropical ridge. That's our main steering flow this time of year. So it is going to keep this storm on that general west-northwest track. Then we'll turn our attention up here where there's that trough I was just mentioning that develops in the middle of this upcoming week. What that does is start to turn the storm to the north. Now the question is it going to turn north a little bit earlier than what we saw with Debbie? And that likely keeps it off the east coast of the state. At this point, it is looking most likely that that trend evolves. I want to go ahead and show you our exclusive Fox model. Notice the main thing working against this storm. Look at all this Saharan air just to the north of us. It's north of it, rather. It found a little pocket on the south side of that where it's able to kind of scoot around all of that dry Saharan air. And we do expect it to be able to kind of win out the battle of that drier air, because as I mentioned, it's really the only thing working against it. The water and the wind shear are favorable for this to be able to develop. So this is paused here Wednesday morning. By Tuesday and Wednesday, that's when impacts are likely to start for the Caribbean islands. So that's something we're going to be keeping a close eye on in the next day or so. Then look what it does. It starts to turn north pretty quickly, well off coast of the Atlantic seaboard. So that would be ideal. We may be talking about impacts to Bermuda and the Bahamas, but at this point, models are in pretty good agreement with that turn to the north happening a little bit earlier. So you can see all of our models taking it due west. So we are likely going to have impacts to the islands, possibly Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands here by Tuesday into Wednesday of this upcoming week. Then models kind of spread a little bit on exactly where that turn to the north is happening. But notice all of them bring it up and around that ridge a lot sooner and a decent amount of the way away from the east coast of the state. So we're still several days out. There is some wiggle room, a lot of dynamics here for things to change. So keeping a close eye on this, we will continue to bring you updates. But at this point, we're watching parts of the Caribbean islands for some tropical impacts to start for them in the next 2 or 3 days.